miners would be getting off work, and of course they'd go to the store there and buy beer. There was a space between the George Gerard's house and the store itself. And there was a few benches around there, and they sit around there and drink beer and whatnot, but most of them would also gas up. We had people from the trench mine drive up here to Washington Camp to gas up because it was more convenient for them, I suppose. And George was a wonderful man, I tell you what, he was a Jewish fellow. And I'll never forget, he was in the school board, but anyhow, he'd forget about they don't believe in Santa Claus or Christmas or whatever it is I heard. And he'd shed that and put on a Santa Claus suit, and he'd give us gifts, make sure that we all got a gift from the school there. Real nice guy. Yeah. Anyhow, I worked for him for about 2 years after school. And they'd drop us, the bus would drop us off over there, and I had to be pumping gas quite a bit. And then they closed the store at 6. Yes, ma'am?
Didn't George Gerard also have a store over at the trench mine?
Yes, he did. Yeah, he had another. He had 3 stores at one time. The one in the Harshaw, the one in the trench mine, and the one in Washington Camp. Yeah, he was a businessman. Yeah.
I remember the little coupon books where everybody would sell. You know, they'd buy a coupon book, and then they would trade the coupon books for whatever the price was instead of money.
I do remember that the guy gave credit to everybody. He had a stack of books up there, you know, with where he would give credit and he'd get paid every payday and start a new one. Yeah. Yes.
But do you remember any bad accidents at the mines there, like cave-ins or blow-ups or?
Yes, I do. In Maori, Adam, yeah, that was years later though. I was back from, but there was a cave-in over there, and some guy got killed over there, yeah. But none at the trench or the flux that I heard about, you know. Yeah.
What were they mining?
At Maori, they were mining manganese, but the Washington Camp and Duquesne area was copper, zinc, lead. That's what I do here.
Too close.
Oh, too close.
Yeah, turn this way.
Okay.
Face this way.
Arnie, turn this way.
Turn this way.
Just turn this way. There you go.
Yeah.
Because the thing is back
Oh,
there.
I see, okay, yeah.
Now you forgot what the question. The question was, what material were they mining at those places?
Oh, the copper, zinc, and lead in the Washington Camp and Duquesne area, yeah, but at Maori it was manganese.
That's what they're after now, right?
Yes.
I believe so, yeah.
The new mine,
Yeah,
yeah.
I believe so.
Does anybody know what they did with the manganese back then?
What was that again?
Does anybody know what they did with the manganese back then?
No, I don't remember.
I think they were
All I know is that we shipped it to Patagonia and then went on the train like somebody was mentioning.
They were making cell phones.
Yeah.
Who were the bus drivers back in the day?
Oh my goodness, let me see, we have several. And Dave Jones, I remember him, would be Max Jones's dad, okay? He was one of them, and the coaches, I remember Metzger and Crawford, they were coaches, football coaches, all athletics here in Patagonia High School. And they would live down there at the apartment right there, right next to the store. George Gerard would rent in a little apartment, and they lived there. And I guess they come home on weekends, and yeah.
Was there a grocery store in Washington Camp there that was owned by or run by Chino Kane?
Oh, that was many years way before me, but I did used to hear about stories about that it burned down, right, or something like that. Yeah, it burned down, yeah.
My parents talked a lot about Chino Kane.
Yeah, Chino Kane, I didn't even know him, yeah. It had to have been before 1938 when I was born, so.
That same canyon that comes up from there is called Chino Canyon. It comes right into
Oh, it
where the
does.
store would be. That's on one of the owners of the ranch. The story with that is there was a coffee can full of gold underneath his thing, underneath his store. Yep, see, there's a few people that have heard that same story.
When did they take the railroad tracks out?
Let me see, I believe the railroad between here and, I bet you Joe could probably tell you that a little better.
64, 63.
Is that what it happened?
And the war stopped between here and Nogales in 1930.
In the 30s, they had a big flood and washed it out between here and Rio Rico, I know that. And then they continue just coming just to Patagonia and they pick up the ore and cattle in the fall. And they head east, I suppose, from Fairbanks, through Fairbanks someplace here.
Take that away from you.
But you got a loud enough voice, we can hear you.
I have a question for Joe. Tell us about your experience in Canelo on that ranch.
My experience on the Canelo Ranch,
Yeah,
when I was working for the Jokes,
yes.
well, I pretty much was in charge of the
Sorry, Arnie.
my experience at the ranch was to tend to the cattle. We had approximately 300 head of cattle that we started off with. And in 1980, I think I got sent to Albuquerque to go to a range management school to learn holistic range management, which kind of would take everything in consideration, not just breaking the land for the sake of the resource that was available there. So that went on for, well, I think that we managed holistically there for the last 20 years that I was on the ranch. And at one point, my boss, who's one of the boss's son, got a friend of his, and he decided that he'd have Gary, his friend, his fishing buddy, hunting buddy, do the cattle. He didn't know anything about cattle, he'd never been around the cattle, so I said, well, you go ahead and do what you can with Gary. That didn't last very long, but in the meantime, I started making some check dams on the place, which I probably built in the neighborhood of 1,200 rough structures. And to kind of recover the land, which was eroding quite bad, especially on the old homesteads, where they had just absolutely denuded the land, and the invasive species had started to come in with mesquite mostly and stuff like that. What I did do with the mesquite itself, it actually, I would take half an acre or an acre of dense mesquite, and I would take everything down to the ground, branch by branch, and I would actually make a whole cover of the raw eroding land, and that in itself was a great conservation effort, because what it's done is it provided shade, which cut down on evaporation. It also, the litter that came off the leaves of the trees. So in 2 or 3 years, in the first year after I would treat an area like that, I would get some annuals that would come in, weeds, whatever. But after about 3 years, I would start getting perennials onto those treated areas. And I use all kinds of, besides rock structures, trincheras, I also use bamboo on those, actually sheet of rosin where there was nothing on it. And I would make a the bamboo next to each other, and that was also a great way to, it would serve the same purposes as a mesquite. So I worked on that for any time that I was not working with cattle. I would spend my time. I was enjoying doing that, and I was surprised at what those structures recovered. There was some structures, I think that Gary Nadan, I showed him doing a tour of the ranch, and he looked at it and he says, "My gosh, that's a lot of material that we recovered." I told him how deep that had been, and he figured that one little structure had recovered somewhere it's like 16 tons of material that had come from the roof. By the time I left there was actually some places that I had water running almost, not all year, but intermittently during the year. So that was my biggest accomplishment in life, I think, was in recovering land, managing land to be sustainable agriculture.
Where did you get the bamboo? Where did you get the bamboo?
The bamboo, well, there was those old homesteads all had clumps of them. And every year, I mean, the clump would get a little bigger, so I would remove everything every year, and instead of just chunking it to the trash or something, I actually used, anytime I prune trees or anything, I use it on areas that needed to be treated like that. It's amazing what little it takes to start some recovery back on the land is very forgiving if you just give it a chance to rebound.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
What was Sonoyta Creek like? Was it running more when you all were growing up? Like the Sonoyta Creek section maybe here in town?
I'm sorry,
What was Sonoyta Creek like? Sonoyta Creek, what was it like?
Sonoyta Creek?
Yeah. Did it have more water, more?
Oh my goodness, I remember one time that the flood was so large that there was, the railroad was still in place, and there was a bridge right next to where the new one is there. And it had brought so much litter, I mean, the big trees and whatnot. And it was actually threatening the town because the water had started coming in to where the clinic that is. And I think your dad and whatnot, they decided that they were gonna dynamite that thing out in order to relieve that flood there. And they didn't end up doing that, but I forget just how it was resolved, but it was, there was some big floods that I saw.
I think Mr. Blake, who was the railroad guy, sat on the bridge with a shotgun. He's allowed to blow that.
Joe, were you aware that your boss on the Jelks Ranch had a barn full of dynamite?
I'm sorry, Jane, I didn't quite.
Your boss, Lucan Jelks,
Yes?
that he had a barn full of dynamite?
There, you know, at one point, yeah, it was just a case of dynamite. But it had been there for many years, and I kept telling the younger Jelks, who was the manager, I said, "You need to get rid of this."
You also had a Gatling gun.
And Mr. Jelks, who had actually been, he was a dynamite peddler.
Yep.
He used to sell dynamite in the mines. So he used to go around headquarters and so he's the one that got the dynamite. I don't know who was from. It was from somebody locally here in that. But it was just a case, it wasn't a barn full of it. It was big enough to roll the barn away. Talking about, Ernie was talking about the mines, and I worked at the mine for one summer when I was a junior in high school. We did Max Jones. And I think that was probably one of my better experiences because as a young person, I was able to learn a lot because I worked with the timberman for a couple of days, the pipe fitters another day, and so forth. But mostly it was with the miners themselves. I worked with a local guy that used to be a miner, Reynaldo Sanchez. And Max and I used to be strammers. So most of the time was spent with like I say, I did work with the pipe fitters, the timbermen, and all the other trades in there. So that was a great summer. A lot of experience for a young man. And back to George Gerard, as a matter of fact, I used to drive the bus, on a bus, to the trench, then drop off the people there at the trench, and then they'd stop at the Gerard store. And I bought my first 30-30 gun that I used to use for deer hunting from George Gerard there.
Wasn't your wife a bus driver, school bus
See,
driver?
my wife, I drove the school bus for 16 years, and somebody mentioned earlier that at that time you could use a little more deterrent to keep these kids from. Well, at one point, I kicked the school board's president on my back because I drove it for 16 years. And I kicked up this kid out of the bus, and I said, "You don't come on the bus until your dad, who was the school board president, talks to you." So he promptly called me, as I said, "I hear that you had some trouble with Kevin. So if you have any more trouble, just gotta go into jail." Which you would do at this point in time. But, so that was good. And nobody did drive for. When I got real busy on the ranch with Jelks, it just got to be too much because I left school, the driving, and Mommy actually drove for 20 years. So between us, we drove for.
Yeah, because when he was also a bus driver, a rancher, he also was a bartender at Sonoyta Mercantile.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Right, Dad? And when he was a bus driver, all of us kids rode on his bus, except for my younger sister, Roxy. And one day, we're driving my best friend, Patricia Meller. We're sitting down on the seat where we're on the floor. All of a sudden, the bus stops, but we're so busy doing whatever we're doing. Next thing I know, I'm getting pulled up by the ear. It's like, my dad didn't put up with anything. And yeah, it was quite embarrassing, the whole, everybody seeing and getting pulled up by the ear. So, yeah.
Was your mom easier than?
I don't know. I never
She's
rode.
pretty tough.
Yeah, she's pretty tough. So. Yep.
Am I right, you guys there were a whole bunch of little schools in all of those, in Washington Camp and Harshaw and Lochiel and everything. I think we've got a photograph up at the museum that there were like 21 or 23 schools in the Patagonia School District. So you guys would have, and right now there's of course only Elgin and Patagonia left. But you guys all went to different schools down there, right?
And see the Lochiel, there was Lochiel, Harshaw,
Parker.
Washington Camp.
Is there one in Parker?
Many years before that.
Parker Canyon.
My father's mother taught at Washington Camp and and Center File. She taught at 3. His mother taught at 3 of them. Florence Oliver.
Yeah, I think there were 20 or so, and they probably just, as a mine opened and closed, the schools closed, I would imagine. Sorry.
How about the Wonder Bar? You guys ever go to the Wonder Bar in Washington Camp?
The Wonder Bar.
Very late, much later, yeah, they built, somebody went in there and built a house,
the Wonder Bar.
But they left it, they had a Wonder Bar in
In Nogales, there was a Wonder Bar in Nogales also, yeah. I believe in the sixties, yeah. But the Washington Camp Wonder Bar didn't come in until late sixties, early seventies into there. Prior to that, the only bar was between George Gerard's house and the store.
How many people in the audience are related to people up front?
All right. Maureen, why have you been so quiet today?
Yeah.
I'm not the guest speaker.
But you're supposed to be hosting, and I believe she had a similar story where she came from the East Coast, right?
Rochester, New York.
With somebody who said, I want to be a cowboy, had a life as on the ranch, became a De La Osa.
I was only 2 years old when my mom and dad loaded us up and wanted to head west because you couldn't be a cowboy in Rochester, New York, especially if you're working for Kodak. And so we ended up out in Parker Canyon. Got a job there with Johnny Jones during Roundup time. So that's where I lived 5 years later in the same house that my husband was born in.
How did you make up that De La Osa game?
Because that's all that was in Loquillo. I didn't have a lot of choice. But it was a good decision. Very good. Super good. Yeah. Great family.
So I want to ask all of you, were you around when the guy was murdered and thrown into the well?
The Herman Bender?
Herman Bender? Yeah.
I was a kid, I remember.
It was 1945.
Yeah.
45.
And Harshaw.
Yeah, just past Harshaw, between Harshaw and Maori.
Yeah, Morning Glory.
Yeah, Morning Glory was the name of that mine, they on the bottom of the mine. You remember that story?
Yes, I was trying to think of the name of the lady that.
Medical Bender, the lady, yeah, she went to the band.
Yeah.
Her sister lived in this building also.
Oh my gosh.
And I thought that they had part of it wasn't a trial or when he was arraigned or something. He was done in this right here at the
Katie Hall.
this building right here. But apparently the lady that was involved in that murder of that guy was she had a couple of nephews from California that were living with her, I believe. And she was a really good-looking lady from what I heard. She used to spend a lot of time at the bar. And I don't know whether he called her on her, but anyway, he ended up at the bottom of one of those
Mine shafts.
Well, what did he do to piss her off?
And Blaine Lewis and his brother Reed, I think, were investigating it, and they actually located the body from looking at the Walters, and they discovered the body down there. And anyways, I think she was tried and convicted of murder.
Joe, what did she do to piss him off? What did she do to piss him off enough? To piss her off?
What did you say?
Piss her off.
Stop it.
Kathy has a question over here.
Do you have any other recollections or memories about the Opera House? I heard that there was dancing
Well, the
there.
Opera House is great.
Yeah, I want to hear about the first Opera House. Now we have another Opera House.
Tell me what she said, Sherry.
She wants to know about the Opera House.
First,
Well, the Opera House was actually they had vaudeville shows right there. They also It was also the basketball court for the Patagonia School. And then they had bailes, which were the Mexican dances, there were always fights in those days. And of course, there were the dances for them. But any time that the Mexicans and the Gringos got together, there was always some contention and ended up in some fist fights. But the Opera House was a great place. I remember that quite well. Well, I was too young to be involved in any of it, so I didn't cause any of that problem.
My mother said that they also skated in there. They had a skate, like a skating rink. And they would skate in the Opera House.
Is she asking a question?
I was making a comment.
Oh, good. Well, I know that after the dances the next day, I used to go over there and I always used to find a dime or two. Yeah, so that was, I mean, whatever, the drunks.
That's like going to the fairgrounds in Sonoyta afterwards.
Yeah.
Right?
So how long has the fairgrounds, did they do rodeos back in the day there? And how long has it been there? And
The fairgrounds?
yeah.
Oh, gosh. I don't know the history of that, but it goes way back.
You know?
I think it was, the Brooks.
1950.
Was it the Brooks that donated the original piece there? But it goes back to 100 years.
Joe, I have a question about this building. I always have heard that these rooms, the original library rooms, were individual rentals for people, maybe minors. But you said you lived here.
Yeah,
and
this
it was
part
a
was
house.
not here. Those rooms that come like from where the desk is right there, the checkout desk,
Yeah.
went all the way to where the parking is right here. And there was like at least 3 families that lived there. I know that the sister of the lady that we're talking about from Maui, she lived on the corner, and then we had the next 3 rooms. And then my uncle lived at the last room on the end. And he had a really nice vegetable and garden right out at the end of the room there. And I spent a lot of summer sleeping under the big tree out in the back over there. In June, it was...
As a watchman or what? Was that
that
as a watchman for the garden?
Yeah, but you had a really nice garden right there. You know, also I think that her mom and Rosie's parents lived in a little adobe house that was right after they got married. They not for very long. They were building a house. My mother had sold them the couple of acres that she had to sell to bury my dad. We were all very destitute guys, but her mom's dad bought and parents bought that place. But for a short time, they lived in a little adobe building right outside. And this place had there was no plumbing, but there was one, I would say, they had no bathrooms. There was one pipe that used to be stuffed into the adobe, and you could drain water, but there was, other than that, that was the only plumbing at the house that this building had. And sticky outhouse and stuff. On the other end over here on the west side, there was a huge cottonwood tree. I mean, that thing was maybe 5 feet in diameter, 6 feet maybe. And a little chicken yard that my uncle had. So this building has been there a long, long time.
Do we have a time limit?
When they run out of stories.
These guys run out of stories. They got all kinds
Bring
of
us a
stories.
couple of beers, we'll just